Hi there, Coni Meyers here. I am so excited to bring you somebody that I love dearly. I started out with my life coach training in 2013, and I've been really blessed to have amazing. Excuse me, I'm in my she shed, and there's a fly decided to join me. So if I'm swatting around, it's because I'm trying to keep it out of my mouth. So anyway, I was really blessed to have just amazing clients while I was doing all my life coach training. I still do some, but not nearly as much as I used to. And this young woman was a friend of mine, another client of mine, actually. And she contacted me, and we had an incredible relationship. Well, we still have an incredible relationship, but we started out on a journey that I have to say I was so blessed to be a part of her journey. And it's very brave of her to come on and talk about a little bit about her journey. And I really feel, but I think it's important because, as I was telling her before we went live, 99.9% of the people out there have a vision or have an idea of what they're passionate about, but they don't know how to step into it. They don't know how to make that move to be able to start living the life of their passion. And I think the story she's going to share with you, and then the video I'm going to post at the end of this, is going to absolutely amaze you. So her name is Lisa Williams. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on live with me.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to see you, and I love you too.
So Lisa, what made you decide that you wanted to have a coach?
I decided to hire you as a coach. It was I'd say about 6 months, 6 to 8 months after I separated permanently from who's now my ex-husband, but went through a divorce, moved to a new town, and was really in a place of just not knowing what I was going to do next and wanting to reinvent myself and reimagine my life. And it was a very opportunistic time, but also a really scary time. And I knew that I needed support and help and didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I needed some help with, bringing my vision together and building something after losing a lot of what I thought I was and my identity through going through a divorce and such a life transition. So
I remember that time as you were very, moving to a new city after going through a divorce is difficult anyway because you don't really know anybody. And you have a son who is starting new school, and that I know that's always traumatic for any parent, to be able to find the right school and to be able to, how do you go around making friends, and how do you start over?
Yeah, he was only 9 at the time, and I didn't know anybody in this town I knew very few people that when I moved here, and it was a really scary time. I mean, I had to face a lot of fears as a single mom. His father wasn't living here at the time, and it was a pretty scary time for me. And it's kind of like, what am I going to do now?
Exactly. Well, I remember one of the first conversations you and I had. It was about we started talking about purpose, and you really didn't know what your purpose was in life except for being a great mom. And so we had to start with really trying to figure out what your purpose in life was. What would you say your purpose today is? What do you feel like your purpose on this earth is?
Connie, I just flashed back to the very first question I believe that you asked me when we were coaching, and the very first question was, "Why are you here?" And I was actually surprised by the answer that came out of my mouth at that time, but I do remember it because I had written it up on my wall after I said it, and it was to express. This is what came from my individual soul, but it was to express my own inner life and feelings in an artistic way. So, if you were asking me now, I mean, I'm moving in right now a little bit more into wanting to empower and help and teach others. But that primary answer was to express myself. And these were longings and dreams that I've had for a really long time, and I have had starts and fits with. And I've been writing for many, many years, probably 20 years, but I had never shared publicly. So that was a big shift for me.
Well, I can tell you that the writings that you shared with me, I think the very first one, I remember the title of it, but the very first one just absolutely blew me away of what an incredible writer you are, and how you put words together is so artistic. So that was, for me, I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to kind of share this with this journey with you. One of the other things you said to me was that, how old were you then when we started?
I was 45.
45.
So,
yeah. So we talked about, you said you were 45 years old, and you didn't think, you thought you were too old to start over. How does that feel today?
Oh God. I mean, it was even more than I was too old to start over. It was, I remember saying, I'm too old and all my dreams are dead. like that's how I really felt. I mean, my dream of my family was gone. I had been homeschooling my son. I hadn't, quote, worked outside the house for those 9 years, although being a parent, I would say, is work 24/7, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally. The most, if you're a conscious parent, the most, difficult thing that is required of a person. And so I just got to this place and I thought, yeah, I'm too old to, have another relationship, to start a career, to do anything. And I thought all the dreams I've ever had were dead. What's the point? And I remember what you told me.
That is the most common thing I hear all the time. I don't care if somebody's 25, 45, 55, or 65. They all think, okay, this is the end of my life and there's nothing more for me but just to survive. I can tell you, Lisa, and I probably told you this, that when I was 22 or 23 years old, and I was divorced from my first husband, and I was thinking about what it is I wanted to do, because I had not really worked. I had done a little bit of part-time work and stuff like that, but I was trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And what I was really wanting to do was become an interior designer. But my mom asked me the question, what is it you would like to do? And I said, well, I really like to be an interior designer. And she said, well, look into it. So I looked into it, and it was going to be 2 years of education, and part of that time was as an intern. And I went at 20, let's say I was 23. At 23, I thought I was too old to do that. And so I think those feelings, especially when we've gone through some kind of a stress like a divorce or something along those lines, those thoughts really, and they really play havoc on our how we feel about ourselves, our self-esteem, our self-confidence. But it takes time for us to be able to move beyond that.
I fully agree. I mean, I can really relate, because I can remember at 25, so very similar to you, feeling back then I wanted to be a writer, and I was taking writing classes, but there was also a parallel thought saying I was too old at 25 to be a writer. It's irrational, and it really has nothing to do with our age. It's just the thinking.
Absolutely.
It's
all about our mindset. And what's interesting is it's just one little teeny tiny tweak of that mindset when things can change. So we worked quite a while on trying to come up with a vision. And it took you a while, but I'd like you to talk about the vision that you came to me and I said, you have to believe that I believe that you can do it.
Yeah. So one thing that I remember, well, you took me through a process of kind of like writing over and over. We met on a weekly basis, I believe.
Yes.
And talking about over and over the things that I love to do in different ways, so that you can then see patterns of what are those core passions and interests that really stick with you and are really authentic. And I remember getting to places where some of these would repeat, like writing and storytelling and movement and music for me and coaching and empowering other people. And I thought, I remember saying to you, how on earth would I bring all of these together? I mean, I don't understand how I'm going to coach and be a storyteller, performer, music. How could I combine all of that? It made no sense to me. And I do want to credit you with always believing. I mean, without a doubt, you always told me it will come together. It will come together, and to keep believing and to keep going. And I think that is one of the most important qualities, maybe the most important quality in a coach, is to be a believing mirror for someone else. Because
that's why it's really important to make sure that the coach is a right fit with the client and the client is a right fit with the coach. Because we really, as a coach, you do need to be truly believe where your client is going and be very supportive. You can't tell them where they need to go. I mean, there were many times when I already knew where you needed to go, but you needed to see that. So I had to support you in a way that I could help you to see it for yourself. So, because it's not a coach's job to tell people what to do. It's a coach's job to be there to help them open up their minds and to be able to express the things they're passionate about. Because if you are passionate about something, then you are on the right path to finding the life of your dreams, of what it is you would love to do. And so it's been a journey for you, but I have to say I'm very, very proud of everything you've done and who you've become. And I love watching you blossom and grow. And some of the, would you mind sharing a couple of the things you did, like the chili cook-off and the
Yeah. I do want to say one point to what you were just saying is it's very difficult to see ourselves. You know, I have coached other people as well, and I believe in coaching, especially when you are a coach or in any successful endeavor or wanting to be successful in any endeavor, to have a coach, because that kind of consistent support and accountability is just critical for just even having someone that's tapped into you and really caring about what your dreams are and kind of holding your hand through that process. We don't have a lot of that in our society. And even with friends, I mean, friends are wonderfully supportive, but they're not checking in with us at that level on a consistent basis. So it's very hard to see ourselves. I can also look at other people and know, yeah, it's clear to me what this person wants to do and what their dreams are. But when it's us and we're up against all that resistance and fear, it's another story. So I needed the help, and I think most people do. So you asked about the couple things that I did with the writing.
As you were going through the process of trying to figure out what it is that you really wanted to do, you did a couple of really fun things, and I would love if you would share those stories with us.
Okay, well, the very first, so like I said, I have written for a long time, but I have boxes and boxes of writing that I have not shared. I published like one thing in the past, which was very exciting. But I've always been really afraid of public speaking, like most people are. I haven't had any training in it. And the very first thing that I did, well, when I first moved to the new town, I'll just talk about the chili cook-off. There was a chili cook-off at my son's school. And in like fashion with me, it was something I wanted to do. I don't know why I wanted to do a chili cook-off. I am not a cook. I do not consider myself a very good cook, pretty basic. But for some reason, I wanted to participate in this. And I got really scared. Again, my process is I deal with a lot of fear and resistance. And kind of at the last minute, 2 weeks before this thing, I decide I'm going to do it. And anyway, I enter the chili cook-off with, I don't know, 30 other people. And I wind up winning the grand prize of the chili cook-off, which was absolutely stunning, astonishing, and terrifying for me. Because I'm thinking, do I have to get up in front of everybody and say something now? That was my big fear. I mean, it's all my insane, neuroses that go on. But so what happened after that, just shortly after that, was there was a studio in the town I live in, a woman who does writing classes. And at the end of the 10-week writing class, there's a culminating performance. I had never done anything like that. Her class started on a Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. And at 8:55, I am standing in my kitchen, and I thought, I really want to do this. Hadn't signed up for the class, again, scared. I drive there. I show up at the class at 9 a.m. and she sees that I'm scared. She's a writing coach. And I say, I think I want to do this, but I'm not sure. And she very generously and kindly put out an extra chair for me and said, would you like to stay for the first half of the class? It was a 3-hour class. And if you like it, you can sign up. If not, that's okay. And I entered this class. There were 6 other people in the class. All of them had acting backgrounds. I had none, but I did have writing. And it's a process of discovering, like you were talking about, discovering what your passion is, discovering what my story is for that particular time. And the story turned out to be the story about the chili cook-off. And so over this process, I wrote this story with the help of her as a writing coach and my own process. And I put a lot of time and work into it, and wrote I think it was like a 10-minute story that turned. The beautiful thing about storytelling is you can take all that pain and fear and transform it into power. And when you express it, I found out, is an extremely empowering thing to do, because you get to write and rewrite your story and take it to a funny place, a triumphant place. And it's very inspirational for myself to do it, and hopefully for other people. But I will say one thing about the storytelling. That was the first time I had shared a story publicly. And it's a very personal story. And as a writer writing a personal essay, it is not fiction. It's my own thoughts and feelings. So you can imagine how vulnerable this can be. And it was standing up in front of an audience of about 75 people, 2 nights in a row. And it wasn't until I did the thing, meaning I'm standing in front of the microphone with the lights on, telling the story, that I realized the power that came into me and my body from doing the thing that my intuition had been calling me to do. So that's how it started. And then I painted and hung a sign on my wall at that time. It was a quote from Emerson, and it says, "Do the thing and you shall have the power." And that's a perfect example of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love that story. And the story that you did tell was a magnificent story. So, and that was kind of the beginning for you to start kind of finding your path. And you did dance at your house, and you did all kinds of really fun things to take you where you are. And I think that's one of the things that I admired about you. You were willing to experiment with different things in order to figure out what it is that you really wanted to do ultimately.
I was willing, and I want to make a note about things that we've talked about, because I guess I would just say to other people, it's not about not having fear. And you would also speak to me about this, about courage, is doing the thing even when you have fear. It's not being fearless necessarily.
No. We always walk with fear. I don't care. You could be Tony Robbins, and the reason he has this little thing he does, and we all get butterflies. We all have, especially when we're doing something new and different. Just like, if you don't mind me sharing this, just like before we came on here, coming on, and you had fear of going live because you didn't realize we were going live. But now you're on here. You can add this to your repertoire, and it's really, once we get past the fear, it's really all about, okay, how does this fit with the part of my life now? And how can I move forward from this? And as we move forward, we're going to have new fear. So you have to walk with your fear. You can't, it's like a weed. You have to continuously pull it. And even weeds show up in the middle of concrete. So that fear is always there, even though we might be solid as a rock. But there's always that little bit of twang in our gut saying, "Ooh, I'm doing something different." So,
Yeah.
well, let's
And
fast
these are
forward
the
to where you
many,
are. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
these are the many things that, you talk with me about, and I remember, and I still, like I told you, I still use these tools on a consistent basis. And I still remember these things that we've talked about. And I really just want to give you credit as a wonderful coach for staying so consistent with those things, because like you said, it doesn't matter if we're an executive or an artist or a mom or whatever it is that we're trying to do to go to our next level in our comfort zone. It is so valuable to have someone as a coach like you who is consistently reminding us that these feelings are normal and that we need to grow through them and walk through them and pull the weeds and, continue getting the bigger frying pan for the fish and not just throw out the bigger fish.
By the way, that's one of my favorite stories. Maybe I should tell it really quick. So there was this young man that went to a river, and he took his fishing pole. He was going to go fishing, and next to him was this old man, and he would throw in his pole and he'd pull out a fish, and he'd take a stick, a broken off yardstick, and measure it. And if the fish was bigger than the yardstick, he'd throw it back. And the young man wasn't catching anything, so he finally walked over to the old man and said, "Why are you throwing back the big fish?" And he says, "Sonny, because my frying pan at home is as long as this stick, and the fish won't fit into the frying pan." So our goal is to find those big fish so that we can expand our frying pan, which is exactly what you have done, I might add.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I did.
So we've talked occasionally over the last couple of years, but I received a phone call and an email from you that was the reason I wanted to do this interview. And so can you kind of fast forward and tell us where you are today?
In terms of everything, in terms of the writing, or
Right. So what has happened since you and I stopped coaching?
okay, well, so like I said, I started out with that very first story that I just talked about, and then it took me a while to do the second one. I had actually signed up for a class. I started it. I got scared. I pulled out. I went back. I did it again. It took me about a year and a half, I think, to get back into another class and do another public story. And that one was very important because I had promised myself I would do it again, and it's not like it got any easier. I mean, but it was significant to have done it twice. It wasn't just a fluke that I did it the first time and it turned
Right.
out great and I had that very empowering feeling. Now I've done it twice. And it's like, oh, this is like really part of who I am and what I love to do and what turns me on, what brings me alive. So after I did it locally, I decided after that, okay, my next bigger frying pan will be to go out of my local community, and I live near Los Angeles, so it's to take this to Los Angeles, which was, if you can imagine, again, quite terrifying. I submitted my piece to a storytelling venue, and it was accepted for a special. They have a annual special music edition, and my story was about this. Now, this is the second story, was about my love and sensitivity for music that I've carried with me my whole life. And it's called Secret Life. And that's the video I just shared recently with you. It was about my longing to play music, but never really feeling like I could do it. And, here I am, 47 years old. This was last year. And the triumph that comes from this. And so I performed it for the first time in Los Angeles, and just had a magnificent time. And then I applied for a fellowship at UCLA. Someone encouraged me to do that, and I won it. And so I got a year's worth of writing classes at the UCLA Writers Extension Program, which I was thrilled about. And again, it's thrilling, but I will admit it was also Like I remember receiving that email and like trying to call people to tell them about it and like forgetting how to use my phone because my circuits were so blown that this was happening. Because what does that mean? That means, oh boy, now I'm getting serious about it. Now I'm going to take 3 writing classes and really stretch myself and really get bigger new frying pans. And so I went through that and I did a year of classes, and that led me, some of the classes I did were also performance classes. So then I did other performances in Los Angeles with other stories. And then the very last thing that happened was I shared my story with someone who I knew was a teacher. And now this is a story that was very important to me. It took me 30 years to write, because it did. It's not the writing of the story, it's the courage to write that story. And it was a story about when I was 15, going on 16, and what was happening in my life. And it was a very traumatic time in my life. And it changed the course of my life. And I went in a direction that was based on survival. And then I got very ill. I'm just kind of giving you brief moments here. And that turned my life around again. And I wound up moving from New York to California, and I completely changed my entire life. And again, I have a very strong value of leaving or bringing stories to an inspirational and triumphant ending, because I think that's really important to empower ourselves to write our stories the way we want to feel it in our own nervous systems, and then to help other people feel that as well. So I shared it with this teacher, and he fell in love with it. And he asked me to come into his high school. He teaches advanced English so I came in for 2 periods. And it was wonderful because it was the first time, first of all, again, not knowing what I was getting myself into. I got there were no stage lights, there was no microphone, and I had, 100 people in front of me, and it actually was great. I didn't know if my voice was going to project all of that, but I never felt so embodied. And it was a dream come true for me, because it was my story about being 15, 16 that I was sharing with other 15 and 16-year-old students. And this had been a long time dream of mine. In fact, I may have even shared that with you.
Yes, you did.
3 years ago, that I pictured myself sharing it at like colleges. I kind of didn't know, but I knew I wanted to do this. I knew this was a very important story, and that kids that age are going through a lot. And it's a very important time of life when you're forming your self-identity. And if something happens at that age, it can really put you off track. And it did for me for a long time. And that's the whole point, is to take that story and that wisdom and help other people with it. So I got to do that at a high school, dream come true, and I got paid for it, which was amazing. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, especially for our high school kids today, with everything they're going through, and all the stresses of school and of life, and of all the trauma that you hear about in schools today, having somebody come in like you and tell your story, and tell the triumph part, that they can make it through, and they can have. I would love to be able to tell kids how important it is to have a vision and live that vision. My 2 granddaughters, my oldest granddaughter just turned 18, and my youngest is 16. Oh, no, she's 17 now. And they have been living their passion since I wrote the book, because they're actually in my book, Crystalline Moments. And following them and seeing how they have progressed in their lives versus somebody that doesn't have that kind of vision for what they want to do. So you being able to bring that story to kids is going to give kids hope. And maybe they can follow whatever their dream is or whatever their passion is. So I really applaud you. I think all along that's been that's your purpose, that's your vision, that's who you are. And I saw it in the way you interacted with your son. I saw it in how you expressed yourself. And I'm so proud of you for getting paid, number one, and number two, being able to share your story and have it make a difference in others' lives. That's very huge, Lisa.
It is. Thank you.
I'm
I
very,
think
very proud of you.
Thank you so much. I really genuinely feel that from you. And it's been so great to be in touch with you all this time. You know, even though I haven't been formally coaching with you in the last, whatever year and a half, the connection still continues and the caring still continues both ways and the learning still continues. And I think it is really helpful for others because I'm going back to this age group, because with anyone, it makes them feel less alone. They're sitting there with all their thoughts and feelings and traumas and shame. And it's really empowering to have someone come in and say, I went through this too. I felt this too. And even when you are going through this and you may not have support at that time, things can turn. And this is how I did it. And you give them kind of like a blueprint for inner strength. And that piece is actually called Inner Voice.
Wow.
Inner voice, because my learning in this lifetime has been to really follow, and we all have the inner voice. It's to listen to the inner voice, but it's also to act on the inner voice.
Absolutely. So, what do you feel is the next part of your vision? What do you think is next for you? Do you have any idea?
I do have an idea. I'm actually just on the verge, and I think I'm probably going to make the phone call today. I have found an amazing program at UCLA, which is called the Social Emotional. It's a certificate in Social Emotional Arts and Healing.
Wow, that's so you.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I saw it, I thought, oh my God, this combines the things that I love and believe in, the arts and the healing. Because I think, as you know, I have a master's degree in spiritual psychology. I've done personal growth for a long time. And at the end of it, I feel like creativity is really the healing. It's like you can get to the healing from the creativity. And once you go through the healing, you wind up with, how do I want to enjoy this life? Because it's really the point of it is you want to be healthy. Even being a health coach, it's like the point of being healthy is to enjoy your life. So what brings you alive? So I think I'm going to go do this 2-month program and just get some more tools and kind of build my repertoire, because my writing is also it's a transformative process. And so that's really the intention behind it. And then my partner and I are also co-creating a group called Living the Artful Life. We actually did it locally. We actually did it locally last year, and we're moving it to the bigger city, where outside of where we live, which is in Ventura. And we're doing a talk in Ventura, California, called a Place of Peace. And it's on Sunday. I'm looking at my notes here because we're just forming the flyer. Sunday, October 28th at 3 p.m. And we'll both be doing a talk co-creatively for the first time. And it's really about, it's not about being per se an artist. It's doing whatever you do in your life artfully and with joy, with sweetness, beauty, expressing your feelings, imagination, all these wonderful things that are our biggest values. And I think that makes life worth living. It's loving your life.
Well, I cannot wait to be able to come to LA and come to one of your presentations, because unfortunately the 28th I'm going to be in Mexico, but you'll let me know. Yeah, my retreat starts on the 28th, so I won't be able to quite make that one. But if you'll stay in touch with me and let me know when the next ones are, I'll make sure we post that. And I would love, as you move forward with this, I would love to have you back so we can talk about where you're going and how you're helping people and what it is that you can do to support others in their artful life. Yes. And I can tell you that I'm going to put the link for Secret Life in the comments. And I can tell you, Lisa, everybody I have showed that to has said they had goosebumps, and over half of them have had tears in their eyes. That's how much impact that it has. I've watched it 6 times now, and every time I watch it, I get something new. And I just can't express to you how much I love, because it is totally Lisa Williams. It is totally who you are and how you got to be where you are today. So I can't tell you how much.
Thank you. And when you're watching it, people, real that was the first time I was ever videotaped. That was the very first time I was ever videotaped. So that's the beginning. And I was actually even partially reading at that point. I have now memorized my pieces, but thank you so much. It feels really good to hear that. And that piece, honestly, when I watch it too, I still feel the same way. It's such an authentic piece for me, and it was life-changing for me.
Well, sweetie, I am so glad you agreed to come on live, and I hope this was not too painful for you.
Are we live? Oh my God.
No, you've done an incredible job, and I just so admire where you're going, and I'm just so grateful that you're in my life. And even though we don't speak all that often, but I think our paths can find a really cool way of crossing over and over and over again. So I really appreciate you coming on and being authentic and doing it with fear. And this will not be your last. You'll be hosting your own soon.
Yeah, baby. Thanks, Coni. You're amazing. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, honey. So this Lisa was truly one of my original coach. I think I only had like 4 other coaching clients when Lisa and I touched each other. And I'm just so grateful for every one of my clients. But when I can see, and what's interesting is I have had every single client reach out to me and let me know where they are in their vision. My first client, it took her 3 years to reach out to me to let me know that the last part of her vision finally happened. But when Lisa sent me the recording that I'm going to post, my heart swelled for joy for her. So make sure you watch it. It is absolutely impactful. And if there's somebody in your life that is younger, that is kind of struggling with where they're going, or even if they're older, they're going to get something from this presentation, because it's artful, it is authentic, and it's the end is, I love the ending so much. So anyway, so everyone, I really appreciate you coming on. If you're watching the replay, please make sure you watch the video, and I will be back with another interview in a bit. I'm not sure who it is yet, so I will keep you posted. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Coni.